The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. You're welcome to Leadership Podcast. And of course, it's another edition of The Big Issue. We've been off the radar for some time now. We just want to announce to our viewers that we are fully back, constantly as before. As usual, I'm your regular host, and with me here in the studio, our in-house analyst, we have Silas Ezegu and Tunde Oguntola.
Thank you for having me.
Without taking much of your time, the big issue of the day is the statistic by the National Bureau of Statistics, the report, which at the end of the day says more Nigerians have slipped under the poverty line in a country whose government is currently running a policy and a program of wriggling 100 million Nigerians or of its citizens out of poverty. According to the NBS, which is actually a government statistic agency, over 3 out of every 5 Nigerians are poor. While the NBS, in the latest national multidimensional poverty index report released in Abuja last week, said 133 million Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. And of course, multidimensional poverty, according to the agency, encompasses deprivations experienced by poor people, such as poor health, lack of education, inadequate living standards, and living in environmentally hazardous areas, among others. And according to the report, 63% of Nigerians are poor due to lack of access to health, education, and poor living standards, alongside unemployment and shocks. Well, over the past few decades, the world has made great strides in the fight against poverty. According to the World Bank, the number of people living in extreme poverty has declined from nearly 1.9 billion in 1990 to roughly 650 million in 2018. This is an incredible achievement, and it is due in large part to economic growth in developing countries. Wow! Silas, you can imagine, from 1990, a 1.9 billion poverty rate, people suffering from poverty, it has reduced globally to 650 million. But in Nigeria that says, especially the present administration, says it is actually working to wriggle out 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. While globally, successes have been recorded in the reduction of poverty, it is not so in Nigeria. And yet, the program and policy of wriggling 100 million Nigerians out of poverty is ongoing. This is not ridiculous.
Yes. Let me stop you from saying for that. How is it ongoing?
So they told us.
They told us. Same government that told us that.
Listen, close to the mouthpiece of the government, and
the same government that told us that fed thousands of school children with how many billions during COVID-19 lockdown when they were going to school, when they first children in school. Look, that's why I like what's happening now with the campaign for 2023. If you say you want to do this, they say, how are you going to do it? Tell us. And some candidates have run away for telling us how they're going to do it. They've been busy dodging the debate. Tell us. The same happened to Buhari when he came. They're going to bring change. How? Because Buhari for debate, he run away. Let's come to
these candidates, especially those of the governing party who are running away from debate. Sorry, I'm not actually cutting you short. I just want to chip in this idea of debate. The candidates of the governing party who are running from debate are saying that, look, There's a difference between debate and this a town hall meeting. Town hall meeting engages you directly with the people you are dealing with, but debate just gives you a platform where you'll be talking to them without seeing them. I think that is why they are
let me tell you,
not really running
if
away.
you want to get a
It's
job,
the approach.
if you go to get a job, if your employer calls you to come and talk about yourself, what you want to bring to this job, are you going to go or not to go if you want the job? So that's by the way. But I don't want to go into the campaign.
Yes.
This report coming out now is a shocker. It's a shocker because of the numbers. 3 out of 5 Nigerians. And when you look at it, that in some areas like Isoto, they have up to 91% poverty. Because this one is more comprehensive, because before they used to talk about the $1 a day, $2 a day monetary, poverty level. I said, okay, this number of people are earning this much or not this much, they will be below poverty line. But now they look at access to water, access to health, access to education, access to this, access to that. How do you cook? Do you use cow dung or clean fuel? Do you use electricity? All those, where do you live? What the environment to live? All those things are determinants of how poor you are in a society. And you asked me a question. In some climes, poverty have reduced by almost 50%, from 1 billion to 600. In Nigeria, the first is the case. Don't talk about 100 million they want to do. You have to say, what are they doing to this 100 million? They remove the 1 million out of it. Is it this 55,000 naira that they selected some people that you don't even know? They'll go to the community and call some people without even recording and say they're giving them 55,000. That is the cesspit of corruption. That is the biggest. Well, I don't know which one is bigger. This humanitarian affairs haste, or the oil theft haste, or the subsidy haste. This government, by the time they go, if the APC doesn't take over, by the time they probe into the cesspit of corruption that they have dug Nigeria into, you'll be shocked at the numbers come out. But let me come to the reality. This kind of attitude the government has shown in the way they spend resources has resulted in more people falling into poverty every day. Because the government will have been, not just at federal level, at state level, are governments that do not know what development is. They think that it's about building an airport or building some bridges in towns. They have the various communities where they need just a bridge to connect them to other places, to their farms, to their hinterlands and co. They're not building bridges across rivers. They're building it in towns where you already have other facilities. So the governors are deploying the state resources in a way that's not lifting the human development index of the people. They're not looking at the education of the people. Go to too many schools now. The power schools are all falling apart.
Is it the tertiary institutions where the lecture?
Okay. So some governments have not accessed this Tibet fund. They just need to bring counterpart funding so they can access the double of that, so they can use it for. Because they know that if they access that money, the way the money is going to spend will not be under their direct control, and they will not get their kickback from that. So most of them are not even accessing it. It's only governments that are sensitive to the people, to people's needs, that go for those kind of things, go to partnership with development partners and co to uplift the people in terms of their health, education, infrastructure, infrastructure that pertains. If you build an airport, for instance, it's only maybe 5% of the population that have need for that. I've seen some. I must say that we have done very well in terms of inflation. But inflation has paid. How many of the poor people in River State can access it? Do you understand? How many people go to law school? It's important. How many people are going to go to law school? Can you imagine if some of this money that's spent in all those things were used to build up the economy of the poor in River State? You could have lifted many millions of people out of poverty. I'm not saying this. If you go to Ebonyi State, for instance, you see overhead bridges everywhere and so on, in urban areas especially, and so on. Then go and look at the average life of the poor man. What the report says, only 10% of Nigerians have access to potable water. 10%. When you mention poverty, looking at those basic things that people need. They need water, they need source of energy for their cooking and for their household. They need schools for their children. They need accessibility. Some people die for 2,000 to treat malaria.
Yes.
And they don't have that. And there's no, so, mechanism in place for them to assist. Some governors who, I'm looking to see some governors who will come and put in some kind of a health insurance policy for the poor, not just those who are government workers who are collecting money already from government, for the poor, so that the poor people, if they have headache or all those killer diseases, all these small diseases that kill them off, they can easily accept health care without, leaving them now because they cannot afford it. So those are the kind of things that uplift the people. Not when you build, high falutin and start showing yourself as you have done. You only do favors to maybe 5 or 10% of people who need those things for cost of their level of living. And what it says 72% of the poor are living in rural areas. 72% are living in rural areas. And that, in fact, 72% of the poor are in rural areas. You can see where the concession is. Well, the governments, when they bring the money, where they spend the money? In the towns, in the other areas.
We will come back to that, Silas.
So that's what I look at.
I think
this report and that. Yes. I find it very, very, very sickening.
Well, we will come back to that because you're actually making a salient point here. Just like Nelson Mandela said, that overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity at all, that our politicians would think that it's a favor. It is an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life. Well, let's quickly take a short break. We will be back in a moment. And of course, as we do so, we hope that our viewers will contribute constructively to the conversation on the big issue. Don't go offline. We'll be back in a moment.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. We're still on the big issue in Leadership Podcast. And of course, the big issue of the day is NBS report, an alarming rate of poverty in Nigeria. Well, in a country well governed by, poverty is something to be ashamed of today, because you can't imagine that you live in affluence as leaders of this country, to go outside the country posing around, and then your citizens are wallowing in abject poverty, and in a badly governed country, well, it is something to be ashamed of. Just like in a well-governed country, poverty is something to be ashamed of. Yes. This very government, the current federal government, headed by President Muhammadu Buhari, told us that they are actually working on programs based on their policy of wriggling 100 million Nigerians out of poverty today. But you see a report, this year's report on the poverty rate, not even an independent body today. This is government own agency, the National Bureau of Statistics. And that automatically tells you that it is the government itself that is reporting the level of poverty in the country it governs. Telling you how, in short, see, part of the report said over 50% of Nigerians cook with dung, wood, or charcoal, and rather than cleaner energy. And with most of them living in northern part of the country and in rural areas. What happened to this program of lifting Nigerians out of poverty? It's not making any
Thank you,
impact.
George, for
Because-
that question. You see, I must first laud the National Bureau of Statistics for setting the record straight and coming out with such a great report that tends to show us the actual thing and the position we find ourselves as a country. The greatest ailment that can befall mankind and which tends to show an imbalance between the rich and the poor over the years, over centuries, is poverty. See, poverty has gone a long way to show an imbalance between the rich and the poor. It shows an imbalanced life, an imbalanced settings, where some particular set of people are living above board and while some are living in penury, not just using dung and charcoal to eat, to cook food. The rice, the agbado, they all mentioned, the cassava. Our politicians mentioned that they will be feeding us with if they should win the election in 2023. I think it should go back and rejig and have a rethink about feeding Nigeria with agbado and cassava. This, we have to get it right.
Sorry to cut you short today. Please, most of us, like Silas, they might understand that thing you call agbado, but most Nigerians out there, our viewers, they might not
Well, they understand more than you. The
You
social
mean
media has made everybody know what
I don't
agbado.
understand.
In fact,
It's
agbado has become one of the popular lexicon now in Nigeria. Agbado simply means maize.
Maize,
And
okay,
it's a Yoruba word for maize.
Maize.
You see, when they say they'll be feeding us with
maize
this,
is a booming business now. Go under the bridge.
it's a booming
You
business
see
because
millions,
it's a booming because
What
it's
people are
now very scarce. You see, these maize are what people ordinarily plant themselves. If you call it a booming business, but the flooding in this year has made most people, when they were just about to harvest their food crops, the flood cut away everything. The houses were submerged, their source of living were submerged, and they have to live in classroom. You see a family of 20, 30 people living disjointly in a classroom. Is that the way to live? They all travel every day. Thank God, most people will travel for this 77th hunger in the United States. They know how they live there. All through my stay in the United States, I did not even match a bomb, much talk of a pothole. If there is a bomb on the road, they will signal you ahead that, okay, yes, there is a bomb on the way. You will know. If there is a police on the way, your gadget will also tell you there is a police on the way. If there is bad road over the night, they don't wait till morning before they clean these roads. They clean it overnight. That shows that they've been proactive over the life of their citizens. Now, besides all this,
sorry to cut you.
come back
Today
to
is saying all these things because he was in the United States recently
besides
for the United Nations General Assembly, and I think part of
besides
this,
all
some of
this,
his observations.
besides all this, you see people in the grassroots cooking with animal dung, cooking with woods, firewood, and all the rest. What about the health implication of all this? Anybody that tends to cook with all this, we know they are largely affected with cataract, eye disease, and the end of disease also affects their lungs disease. In fact, someone who cook with firewood, his lifespan can be more shorter than somebody who smoke daily because you inhale more smoke from this firewood than puffing a cigarette. You see, this is all sad situation we all find ourselves that call our position to work in tandem. It's not the issue of APC, PDP, Labour Party, or Atiku, or Tinubu, or Peter Obi. All these people need to come back. They should come back and rejig towards having a consensus that will redirect this nation, not issue of party and being clouded with politics and giving everybody guns to shoot to that. What is reigning now with this part of this world in North Central now is a gang of young boys who go house by house to rob people. As I'm speaking with you, just yesterday, a gang of over 50 boys attacked University of KP, Nasarawa State University, KP. This thing happened also in Wama village. It's happened also inside Abuja here. What do they call it? Just opposite.
They went to Nyanya.
It happened within the metro city where young boys will gather themselves in 50 because they know that with their population, they barely can stop them. And when you call the police won't also attend to you on time. You see, this is all posing towards a failed state, a failed country that needs to rejig itself to get it right. If this poverty index can come from the National Bureau of Statistics, then I think every program of the humanitarian ministry should be out by now. They should stop it and have a rejig of it because it's not working. It's not working. Now, even if you see young man, being you that you're going to work, maybe if you pick your bag or you're going to work every day, people are just angry over it. Why? They've not eaten. People are getting jealous and over each other. What is the cause? Poverty, hunger. They feel you that you're working just just maybe a little above the 30% minimum, which is no way to find. So they need to rejig all this. You see, an Aboki man, for instance, that can access dollar from the government for 410, while others are accessing it for 700. It shows what? There is an imbalance in the monetary sector. When some people can access dollar for 400 and others, you see, all this will not help us as a nation. They need to harmonize all this to get it right. Our manufacturing sector needs to get straight. More jobs need to be created and not just giving people 30,000 naira, 20,000, 5,000. I think you are supporting them. And some would even boldly say they gave their mother 30,000 naira to start cooking beans cake beside the roads, and it has helped them to curb poverty. That is not true. We need to have an holistic approach to tackle poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tunde. Silence. If you see the NBS report, let's not just say NBS. We might be misleading people. The government, Nigeria's government's own statistics on poverty.
Our listeners.
Yes. Well, before we continue, if I come back to Salah, I think our viewers are beginning to send in their comments there. And of course, they'll have to do because it's a very annoying issue we are discussing today, a vexed type of issue. We have Awalam Emmanuel. Awalam Emmanuel is saying we want the rate of everything in Nigeria to come down and let there be electricity supply. I don't know how you expect that to come down when at the end of the day, every day it keeps escalating. You go to the market, the things you normally buy has increased by 50%. But before you do that, before I allow you to come up again, Silas, let me show you. There's a correlation between that very report, NBS report, last week, which said 63% of Nigerians are poor due to a lack of access to health, education, and poor living standards alongside unemployment and shocks. And that takes me to what Barack Obama said and Irene Khan. Barack Obama said if poverty is a disease that infects the entire community in the form of unemployment and violence, failing schools and broken homes, then we can't just treat these symptoms in isolation. We have to heal that entire community. Now, Irene Khan corroborated Barack Obama by saying poverty is not only about income poverty, it's about the deprivation of economic and social rights, insecurity, just like Tunde was talking about, the spate of robbery too increasing due to the poverty level, discrimination, exclusion, and powerlessness. That is why human rights must not be ignored, but given even greater prominence in times of economic crisis. That has pointed just to one thing: the government is actually reporting itself about bad governance in its own very report of the poverty rate in the country. Yes. What do you think about this?
Right. You see, these two statements are just apt to describe, the circumstances of shape. But even more so,
Nigeria is now becoming synonymous with poverty.
No, already, since the government coming the government has already slipped to become the poverty capital of the world. The only thing we're talking about now is that the investment has increased. If the government has a plan to lift 100 million out of poverty, and we are falling more into it now, I'm sure that when they said that they have up to 100 million for Nigerians, or maybe they just have. Now we have 133 million. So maybe the rate has increased by 3 million. Before this next year, maybe we go to 150 million. But I got a hint of another report by a former CBN deputy governor that Moral, we were trying to say that this poverty level is not even updated. That the way I had it on TV was that like maybe it's more than that, up to maybe 8% or 90%. That's case may be if you look at all the indices. And two, we've not talked about, this part may have covered the 2019 or 2020. We've not talked about since 2020 or so to now. I'm sure that more among Nigerians who are falling into. So this report is not even updated. But by next year, when we go into next year, with the flooding, destroying crops, people's houses and everything, in the next 2-3 years, if this government had done anything to, reverse things, this 60% will be child's play, because by the time people look at the devastation caused by this flooding in 31 states, Bayelsa is already one of the poorest states according to the report, along with Sokoto and Co. and Co. You can see that almost 8% of Bayelsa or 90% was submerged in water. That means houses, their foundation, everything about spoiled, their crops, cropping, everything.
Their source of living.
The state of Zamfara. So you are still going to have more, people falling into this. By next 2 years, you see the result of this flooding. So what I'm saying is that the way we run government needs to change. Those who are in charge need to begin to think about Nigeria first. That's the only way. If you're talking about when you went to hunger, those people work because they feel their country needs to be better. The people in charge of things, of allocating resources to society, they feel that their country is that, so they do it to play their society. In Nigeria, those who are in charge are seeing how to steal from the system. They themselves feel comfortable and instead at the what? To the what? Detriment of the what? System. That's how to change. The leadership need Nigeria, and leadership of thinking about Nigeria first. I was mentioning, let me quickly round up so I can say something. I will try to consider what happened in Rivers State recently when the government asked the former governor to refund the money they paid him for pension. The governor that was declared not to have been a governor by Supreme Court and removed from power. The state government went to arrested him because of political reasons, and within a space of 7 years or 6 years, they have paid him 600 million plus other things. The governor that's not working for the government again, the former governor that was also have been governor, was paid 600 million in the space of 6-7 years. That means we're collecting almost 100 million. I want to ask you, is the president of Nigeria entitled to 100 million naira as his legitimate income? This is what the Rivers says is paying a former governor that was not supposed to be a governor in his place, which the court declared was not a governor because he was removed because he didn't win the election. You see how they located that resource of Rivers State people to one man.
One man alone.
Can you imagine
if the simple reason that he was a governor? And he was case governor for 3 months.
Which was removed because he didn't win the election. Now, you see how they politically located that money. Imagine if you brought that 600 million they paid that man, plus other houses, other things they were giving him, and then gave it to 600 youths in Rivers State to start a business or to throw themselves from one to another. Do you know they have removed 600 million people at a for 600 people? I said 600 million. Can you imagine? Do you have 600 million people in Rivers State? Imagine you share that 1 million naira to family, each family in Rivers. Do you know what you have done? You have lifted them from somewhere, and you are giving some people seed money to start a business, to start a course, or go to school, or treat their head. You have lifted them from some level. But that's what they give somebody who was supposed to have a governor in the first place. They asked to reform. Now, this current government, Rivers State, one of the poorest in the indices. The Bayelsa former governor, when he became a part of this government, he dropped his case. They had 56 houses that he acquired by working in government sectors. They didn't seize all, they just insist that they saved. And they returned it to him because he was not part of this government. So, do you know the value of 56? How many of those houses can you say were legitimately earned money? You know where I'm going? Because those in government seize all the resources of the state for themselves and leave the rest of Nigerians to wallow in poverty. That's what it is. By the time Nigerians are sensible enough to understand this, maybe the way they choose their leaders going forward or the way they react to the leaders will change. But the day to change, it may be bloody. That's why I'm just saying it should not be bloody. But it is these people in authority, in politicians, and co that are making the rest of Nigerians poor. And people are dying of poverty because of these people. So I think that the question will be around what should governance be and what is, should government be. We need to say
Thank you
no
very
more,
much,
no more to
Silas.
this kind of governance.
That-
It's about governance.
That point you just made is
It's about
valid
governance.
and valid and valid. And let me now let you understand something. Just like the People's Democratic Party, the main opposition party in the country, see, they say the recent report by NBS shows that the governing APC has a legacy of spreading poverty. Say it added that the development portends a threat to security and stability of Nigerian nation,
Like you said.
just like Tunde said.
Yes.
And now there was another report yesterday, and that report by an independent, non-partisan, and innovative public policy think tank, the Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation,
Funded by Professor Man.
by Professor
Moalo.
Moalu.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I referred to it before.
That report revealed that Nigeria has become increasingly, just hear the word, the choice of words, increasingly synonymous with poverty. That is, poverty is Nigeria, Nigeria is poverty. That is what it means. Now, the report, however, suggested ways of wriggling 100 million Nigerians out of poverty, just like the federal government is claiming. And what it said, let me see, what did it say? One of the ways is that the report recommended some approaches and intervention, including starting with elite consensus, which should be framed, and a bargain struck that taking 100 million Nigerians out of poverty is the primary goal of politics and governance alongside the imperative of national security. And what does this mean? The report says elite consensus approach, which is anchored on more on political economy than simply on technical policy, accords with the reality that the factors that most affect Nigerians' economy, including the prevalence of poverty, low productivity, and system corruption, are mainly issues of political economy. The relationship between individuals, government, and its institutions, and public policy. And that, it said, cost of governance.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Cost of governance must be reduced.
See, that government is because of corruption.
Corruption.
Why did they impeach people to be a Tribal government? Because something that the House want to buy for maybe 800 million. It's 150 million to do it. I'm not sure of the figure of it. They now say, no, this one don't want to play game. They move from power. It's not about people. The other public workers in Nigeria who have that mindset. They look for people who will cut down on governance. That governance is corruption. That cut down on governance corruption. Last year, they budgeted, is it 2 billion for is it to repay electrical appliances in the villa? What's the meaning of that? Whether they look at the money finally, I don't know. That was in budget. To repay, not buy.
Thank you very much. Silas, let's listen. Tunde, what in the final analysis, very briefly, what do you think is the way out?
For me, these figures and the statistics from National Bureau of Statistics show that Nigeria is moving towards doom if urgent step is not being taken to address poverty in Nigeria. Government must work together with all elites. There must be a consensus towards moving Nigeria forward. Thank you.
Well, that is the much we can take for today's edition of the Big Issue. But before we go, let's just leave ourselves with a word by Confucius. It was Confucius who said, in a country well governed, poverty is something to be ashamed of. And he said again that in a country badly governed, wealth is something to be ashamed of. Well, our leaders in Nigeria must understand that as the masses, the common Nigerian, wallows in poverty, while the governing class, the elites, wallow in stupendous wealth. It is not just a shame of a nation, but a shame of those who are said to be leading that same nation. The ball is in the court of Nigerians who, at the end of the day, have that ample opportunity and the platform to choose who their next leaders will become. And that is the 2023 general election, which is inching closer by the day, with the presidential election coming up on February 25. And until Nigeria learns to keep a date, not just keeping a date, but a perfect date, with the polls coming up, nothing will change in the poverty level of the country. Thank you for keeping tab with us. And of course, I thank you, our viewers, for actually staying glued to our channel. And of course, our in-house analysts for addressing the big issue. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of this program. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.